Good morning, viewers at home. I remain Adeola Tunde Michael, and this is going to be one of the educational series with a continuation of the Mendelian inheritance. In the previous video on genetics and the environment, I actually made mention of who Mendel was, as the father. He is being regarded as the father of genetics, and which I told you that he came up with three very important laws in genetics that is still very relevant till today. Don't forget that I told you that Mendel was a monk and he lived his life as a monk. He lived between 1822 and 1884 when he died. He was an Australian scientist, a teacher, and sometimes, just like I said, he blended science with mathematics, and he attended the University of Vienna. And just like I said, his genetics law became very relevant very long time he left, because immediately after him and up to today, the Mendel's unit of inheritance day is now known to be our gene, and he was the founder and a pioneer in genetics. So just like I told you that genetics, Mendel actually came up with three laws which was very relevant. He made mention of the law of dominance, whereby he was able to say that some traits and some characters will overshadow another one, which is known to be recessive. So, and I said earlier on that if you in genetics, any organism, be it any organism, especially plants, that do not follow the Mendelian inheritance, that mean that maybe the law of dominance is not going to be effective. Don't forget that in the early part of this genetics, I made mention of an example of co-dominance characters, which I regarded as a ABO block group, instead of us having the allele when we have a trait, and the opposite, the alternative form, which is going to be the allele. So that one is not exactly what happened. So part of the deviation from the Mendelian law happens to be that law of co-dominance. Don't forget that I told you that dominance is part of the law that was put forward by Mendel. So, and the second law, which is actually regarded as the law of independent assortment, that was where we actually stopped in the previous video. So, the first law, which is regarded as the law, I told you that, okay, this is genetics, which is a part of the genetics and the environment, which I said we are going to focus more on genetics. So we have, I told you that there are three basic laws of Mendel. The first one is known as the law of segregation, and that law of segregation is also known as the law of monohybrid inheritance. That means we are considering only one character at the same time. That is, and I was able to give you some of the traits that Mendel actually made use of in in putting up this law of Mendel. I told you that Mendel used garden pea plants, so he made use of several acres, running to hundreds of acres, for him to be able to cultivate these plants before he was able to come up with all this. And I actually gave you some of the unique characteristics of these plants that make these plants to be very, very suitable for Mendel to be able to use, and for genetic explanation. So the second law, which is called the law of independent independent assortment. The first law is also regarded as the law of germinal unit, because it was in that law that we actually know that if you have an organism with a trait like tallness, we normally this will tell us that during fertilization, or what is called gametogenesis, this one will separate. This TT will separate. So this one will go will be donated by the father, and the second one will also come from mother. So that is telling us that if we are applying the law of germinal unity, which is the first law, in man we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. 23 pairs. That means one will be inherited from your parents, which is going to be one from your father, and another one from your mother. And that's why it is very, very wrong to actually say that maybe you don't look like your father, or you don't look like your mother. So it is very, very impossible for you to actually disown your parents, because maybe you now say you like your mom more than your father. So don't forget that in genetics, each of your father and your mother must have contributed one of your chromosome. Seed is round. Let's consider the shape of the seed shape. So according to Mendel, if it is the seed can be round, and the allele for that round will be wrinkled. Okay. Then the second character, it is either the plant is tall, then the allele will be what? Short. So what that means is that genetically speaking, if we are considering this, if R represents your roundness, if capital R represents roundness, the wrinkleness, it will be represented by small letter r. So if this one is represented by capital letter T, so the allele for that is going to be capital T. So the allele for that is going to be capital letter, small letter T. So that is telling you that, and don't forget, one of the assumptions of Mendel is that, and that is what we call the law of dominance. So this is telling us that roundedness will be dominant over wrinkleness. So that is capital letter. Anyone that is dominant is the one you are going to use capital letter to represent. And anyone that you are going to represent by small letter, that means it is the one that's going to be in recessive form. Don't forget verification of the Mendel's law. I told you that F1 in first law is going to be all will be heterozygous. And F2, you cannot verify Mendel's law on their generation. Even at first filial generation, that is the first set of offspring that will be produced from two parents, you will not be able to actually verify, because all will combine heterozygously to form. And don't forget that I told you that the F2, you get F2 by crossbreeding the product of F1. Don't forget that in genetics, the rule of consanguineous marriage between two similar organisms, that is between brothers and sisters, is not actually a bad thing in genetics. And by the time we start considering human genetics, we dwell more on what we actually call this. So now, what that means is that the second law, which is the law of dihybrid inheritance now, so we want to consider a plant. Don't forget dihybrid. So